All right, guys, welcome back to Watch Trading Academy. And joining me today is Wilson, the latest member to cross yet another milestone of $100,000 in net profits in a 12-month lifespan. So congratulations. This is a big achievement.
Yeah.
So it's the beginning of a bigger achievement coming, right?
Definitely.
So let's talk a little bit about your beginning journey with Watch Trading Academy. When did you sign up? Why did you sign up? And when did you sign up?
Yeah, I started, I believe, May of 2023. And actually, I signed up for Exotic Car Hacks first, and I saw the little upsell on the checkout page that says, do you want to learn how to do this for watches too? Check that upsell. Went through the ECH course. It was all really cool stuff. But then I watched the Watch Trading Academy course, and it spoke to me a little bit more because it was more about making money wearing watches. I was like, whoa, you can make money wearing watches? Like, what is this all about? You know. So, funnily enough, I was working at a car dealership at that time, and a guy walked onto the lot with a Breitling. He didn't have a down payment for his car. Then he asked me to buy his watch off his wrist at the down payment. So I actually bought a Breitling Super Ocean for $1,800 off his wrist, listed it on Facebook Marketplace from the knowledge of WTA, and a week later sold it for $2,600.
Wow, so that's interesting. What an interesting way to get your first watch, right?
Yeah, that was crazy.
So you were working at a car dealership, you were interested in Exotic Car Hacks because it's car related.
Right.
And then ultimately you were like, wait a minute, I can make money with watches, I'll learn this too. And suddenly, boom, a client walks in and you figured out how to bridge that gap for him with, I need money for this down payment. It's like, give me your watch and instead do that.
Yeah.
So let's take a moment and unpack that for a second.
Sure.
So in May 2023, you discover Watch Trading Academy, like this is something that you're now signed up for. How long did it take from, excuse me, from May 23 to the time that incident happened where you got your first watch?
It was about 2 weeks.
So it was very quick.
Yeah,
after you learned
very quick. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 weeks later, you're able to make a couple $100 in a watch.
Yeah.
Tell me how things go from there.
Yeah, so super excited after that first one. The guy that actually bought it, met him at a casino nearby, and he paid me cash. When I saw that money come back in after putting $1,800 out the week before, I was like, this is amazing, right? So start going on eBay and looking for other watches, going on Craigslist, and eventually found a Hublot as my second watch, and that just like kind of snowballed into more and more watches. Got into some more Panerais and things like that as well.
Okay. So what was the determining factor from you doing this as kind of a side hobby to realizing it's serious and maybe I gotta take it seriously so I can make 100K?
Yeah, I would say it was actually that second trade, that Hublot, because I found it on eBay for like $9,500, and I sold it to someone in the WTA group for $12,000. I was like, I can make $2,500 on just one watch.
And this was your second deal?
That was my second deal ever.
Which is pretty crazy, right?
Which is
20%
really crazy.
margin on something like that?
Yeah, that was amazing. And so that made me realize that I can do this, part-time, full-time, however much time I want to spend, but I can eventually achieve a six-figure income from just wearing watches.
And was your intention to kind of switch jobs originally, or was this more like supplementary?
It was more supplementary, yeah.
So it was something you've always wanted to do on the side, not so much to switch from selling cars.
Yeah.
Very cool. So when you think about like kind of what you've been able to do so far, and again, like May 23 to now is roughly a year and a half, later, a year and less than a year and a half, a year and a quarter, and you're here in a position to basically now have created $100,000 in net income in less than 12 months. So let's talk a little bit about what are some of the things you've learned along the way that have enabled you to kind of progress at this speed?
Yeah, I would say the number one thing is networking and relationships. I would say putting more weight and spending more time on networking with others.
Explain what that means, so maybe people like know what can I do to network, meaning what should I do?
Yeah. I mean, there's networking with other people in WTA in the group. That is the first form of networking that I did. And eventually I branched out as much as I could, right? My wife, for example, is really into wine and whiskey. So we go to a lot of I'm from Los Angeles whiskey and wine events. And I wear APs out there and see who else is wearing Rolexes and APs and connect with people at those networking events.
Okay, so I mean that's fantastic. So networking is in taking what you're already doing and just basically going out there as the watch guy. How do you present yourself as a watch guy to some of these people in the whiskey business?
Initially, I actually don't present myself as a watch guy. I present myself as more of a collector, right? Someone on like eye to eye with them, and just start talking watches from a fun perspective, right? I think a big reason why people like working with me is because I try to make it as fun as possible, and I think that really speaks to a lot of the people I work with.
Okay. So what was the most impactful training you took at WTA and why? that
I
kind
would
of changed your
say-
mindset towards like how to basically make this really work for you?
Yeah. The most impactful training I would say was elite coaching, actually.
Okay.
Yeah, being in that elite coaching group and having access to you directly, you helped me. Actually, I don't know if you saw, but after you helped me with a bunch of my listings and my photos, my listings just evolved into something. I don't know. I even thought it was amazing when you gave me feedback and I made changes after that. So elite coaching, having access to you, I think that was a big game changer for me.
Okay, so just having that instant access to being able to ask a question and see where you're basically making a mistake
Yeah.
and how that one mistake could be costing you so much.
Yeah, definitely.
So outside of photography, would you say that there was any one specific skill or trait that enabled you to get here faster? Do you
I would-
consider yourself a great salesman, a great
Yeah.
buyer, a great
Yeah.
photographer?
Yeah. Not to sound too cocky or anything, but I'm pretty much good at all of it. You know, it was a long process to build those skills. I was very serious about it. I watched all 3 WTA courses probably 5 times over, and kept absorbing as much information as possible. Using the feedback I get from people in the community, like Andre on his photography, Lucas Wilson on his salesmanship, Mike Sandback on his salesmanship, you by my side as well. I would say all those things combined helped me listings faster with perfection, talk to people from a collector standpoint, and network with them at a higher level. I think there's no one thing that I think
Like
really.
specifically attributed to
Yeah,
your success. It was kind
yeah.
of a series of things,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Interesting. So how much did you know about watches before getting into this?
0, nothing,
Nothing?
nothing.
Not even a little bit?
Not even a little bit. Not even a little bit. I mean, I bought some watches before, but like, I don't even know what brand names those were. Like, they weren't even Tissot or they weren't even Seiko. They were like Hamilton watches or
Right,
something
so
like
it's
that.
garbage.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're
Yeah.
buying garbage, now you're buying stuff that converts into profit.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
let's talk a little bit about how much social media, or ultimately being able to post your stuff online, has that been a critical factor in you finding success doing this, or not really?
For social media, not so much actually. I would say, but my biggest marketing pieces are actually on platforms like Chrono24 and eBay. I get most of my leads and most of the people I talk to from.
So you're the first person that said Chrono24 has been helpful to you. Tell me a little bit about what specifically is helpful in Chrono24 that's been working.
I get
A lot of people don't like Chrono24. That's why I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, why is that working for you? What
Yeah.
kind of watches have done well for you on there, and why specifically?
Yeah. Honestly, all watches have done very well on there for me. I get probably 80% of my leads on Chrono24, and to put a number to it, probably around like 8 people messaging me, 8 brand new people messaging me on Chrono24. It has a lot to do with how many watches you have listed there. Obviously, the more listings you have, the more people can message you for each watch. But just the amount of leads is amazing on Chrono24. And I think that it has a lot to do with the photography and my descriptions that I write myself, or my team writes for me as well on Chrono24. All those have given me a bunch of leads on Chrono24.
Okay, excellent. So when you look at eBay or Chrono24, if you could only have one, which one would you keep?
It would be Chrono24.
Chrono24,
Yeah,
so
I
that's
get
that
way
impactful
more
for you.
leads.
Okay.
Yep.
And did you set up a dealer account on there, or are you setting up as a person?
Yeah, as a dealer account.
Dealer, okay. So, and it's still working out fairly well for you.
Yeah, working out very, very well.
So if you were now looking back at the beginning of your journey, is there anything you wish you would have known earlier?
Yeah, I would say I have to go back to the networking, is putting way more weight and time on networking with other people, whether it be fellow WTA members or just going out and meeting people at random places, and really, putting a foot forward into the networking space.
Okay, so networking has been something that's like significant for you.
Yeah, definitely.
How many
Huge.
watches do you sell a month roughly through networks or people you meet?
Through networking, I probably sell around like 8-ish watches just through networking alone.
8 watches
Yeah.
a month.
Yeah,
Well, that's
Yeah.
a pretty big amount.
yeah, yeah.
What kind of brands did you choose to specialize in?
AP and Rolex.
Those are the two that have held a big weight for you.
Yeah, yeah. Most profits and most volume. Most volume.
Most
as
volume
well.
are in those two. Okay. It's interesting. We always see different students doing different things at different stages, like either having a lot of success with one versus another.
Yeah.
I'm just curious if one worked for you or not. Now, looking back at your journeys now and all these new people watching these interviews, of course, and they are here and they're like, hey, I wish I was sitting there. I wish I was making 100K.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about what kind of advice would you give these new people?
Well, other than networking, I would say watch the courses as many times over as possible. I think that was a pretty big impact for me. Watching the course once meant something in that first time watching, but watching it again, like, 3 months in, 6 months in, meant something else to me, right? I think I picked up more things in that same content in month 3 and month 6 that I couldn't really absorb before. In addition to that, networking within the group, I think that's super, super important. Last, I would say deal flow. I think deal flow is really, really huge. I would say if you can make any profit on any watch, just take it, because especially if it's a replaceable watch, you can do it. You can just do it over and over again, rinse and repeat.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about networking now, generally, because this seems to be a very big thing for you that's worked out well.
Yeah.
When you network with people, you said you don't approach them as like a watch guy. You approach them as a collector, et cetera. You're talking maybe whiskey. If we're at a whiskey event, how would you approach someone to talk watches? Is there something specific you look for, or what specifically, how do you engage conversation or make that impactful for people that are watching? Like, how can they basically like duplicate some of these best practices out there?
Yeah, I'm definitely surveying the event for seeing who's wearing Rolex's APs or other watches. And like, I definitely have my sight set on that person, not to sound like stalkerish or anything like that. But I try to look for the most organic opportunity in meeting them, right? I'm not just gonna go up to them and be like, hey, like, nice watch. I kind of wait till like, we're in the same area, waiting in line for the same tasting at the same booth, and then just kind of like bumping into them, be like, oh, dude, like, nice watch, or oh, hey, like, do you hear anything about this whiskey? Why are you in line for this whiskey? And then slowly working my way into noticing what's on his wrist. And talking about watches from there.
Okay, so identifying a person based on like what they're wearing, so there's commonality, common interest. How do you approach someone in terms of how do you turn the conversation from whiskey to watches? Tell me.
I think like mid-conversation, I just go, hey, like, that's a nice AP you have. Like, where'd you get that AP from? Or start off with just like a really as friendly of a question as possible.
And how do you turn that into some kind of future client or get your AP from it? Because I would assume most people that are in these events are probably thinking they're getting their watches from authorized dealers or individuals who are paying MSRP.
Yeah.
What have you found for that conversation to be?
Yeah. Actually, in that specific conversation, I don't really talk about, hey, like, do you want to buy a watch or do you want to trade watches with each other? It's just, I make sure to get his phone number. And then like days later, I would just start texting people saying, hey, like, check out what I'm wearing today, and try to just come off as a pure collector, right? Sometimes I just like shoot pictures of like my watch next to a beer that I'm drinking, like, hey, like, check out what I'm drinking today, check out what I'm wearing today, and that turns into more conversations. A lot of the feedback and responses I've gotten from that is, oh, like, that's such a cool watch. Like, how much is that watch? And then that turns into more of a transactional type of conversation.
Okay, so it's basically like teasing kind of the product or what it is you're trying to sell out there, and letting them come back to you with, like, is there interest? Is there an opportunity for them to basically want to interact with the sale? Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
And how do you feel your geography has helped or unhelped with this situation?
And being in LA?
Yeah, like, because a lot of people would say, well, if you live in a big city, it's easier. I mean, I would argue that living in Miami is not necessarily easier. There's more support.
Yeah.
But there isn't necessarily more customers. There is and there isn't. It's more competitive. So yeah, there's more customers. There's also like 900 jewelry stores within like a mile radius.
Yeah.
So what have you found your geography to help or not help with networking?
I actually think that being in Los Angeles helped a lot with meeting a lot of WTA members face to face. I think that when you meet other people face to face, especially other WTA members, there's just a higher level of trust, right? I've met with Andre before, I've met with Justin Brown before, Austin Pollard, and it's just super easy to get deals with people that you have that higher level of trust with. Right. If we know each other's inventory, we can sell each other's inventory, and it's just like, hey, like, snap of a finger, wire's in your account, or hey, I'm getting the wire today, like, make sure to put that on hold for me, and they'll just do it just because they trust you on that level.
It's funny because we've seen this in Elite, right? All of you guys are together, and it's easy to sell each other's watches. We have the inventory sheet, the inventory group, and ways that you can basically represent each other's watches.
Yeah.
You said something earlier that kind of goes back to that I want to take a second to talk about. You said networking in WTA at the beginning was really important and builds trust.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit as to what specifically, why is that building trust, or like what was it that you did to network with other people in the group? Because everybody may say, well, I don't have access to a wine event, I don't live in LA, but everybody does have access to WTA Group. So
Yeah.
what are some of the best practices you've seen in terms of new people networking, or how you would give people advice on networking?
Yeah, so looking back when I first started last May, a lot of the networking I was doing was just like checking out how other people would format their sales posts, and messaging them and just asking them like, hey, why did you format it that way? And really come off, like start the conversation with a student mentality. A lot of people like are very, very helpful in that group, especially just on Facebook Messenger. They'll even like, stay accountable for you and what you're doing, seeing if you're applying seeing if I applied what I learned from them. I think your learning really accelerates when you have one-on-one conversations with people in the group.
Okay.
Yeah.
So one-on-one conversations, meaning did you ask for help, or was it participation in answering questions? What specifically got you to being able to successfully meet other people from the group, meaning for them to take you seriously enough to not be like, I'm just asking 500 questions, not providing any value?
Yeah, that's funny. That's the funny thing about the group is that I haven't really met anyone that gets annoyed by questions or anything like that. Everyone is just so freaking helpful, and just asking them questions, people will just answer and help you to the best of their ability. This can be either like if I'm commenting on a post and someone will reach out to me directly and start answering all my questions. So I don't think there's any really need to be fearful of like, hey, I'm asking too many questions. Most people just are super helpful in that way.
And have you used any type of Facebook groups in terms of like selling watches or not? Or
Yeah, I've used a lot of Facebook groups. I found that I haven't really gotten too many sales from Facebook groups, but it is pretty good to network with people, unfriend people, kind of roll the dice a little bit and see like who you can meet from these Facebook groups.
Well, I think getting to 100K is an amazing first step, right? It's the beginning of the tip of the iceberg for what's to come. Most people go from 100 to 250 in less time than they went from 0 to 100 because the wheels are in motion. How do you plan to change your business going forward to get to 250?
I would say hiring. I think duplicating myself in any of those aspects that I need to, maybe hiring a photographer or getting a salesperson on board so that I have more time to build this watch trading business is probably going to be one of the big changes that I'm going to make to get to 250.
Okay, excellent. So first off, congrats again.
Thank you.
This is a pretty big deal, a pretty exciting milestone to cross. And I think one of the things that people can take back from this again is here's another opportunity, another person that yet has crossed this milestone. So the argument is if all of these guys are doing it with zero watch knowledge, with zero real power, coming into the game without millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, why can't you? Ultimately, why can't you be here getting your very own 100K Club award as the beginning? So I appreciate you joining us, Wilson. Thanks again for sharing some insights with our new members. And otherwise, again, who will be next? Will it be you? Thanks again for watching Watch Trading Academy.